Hey everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms, and I am joined here as always from Cincinnati. I got to throw that in while you're out there still.
Wow,
By
this is
Sam
my last
Schneider.
one.
That's right, a primetime sports talk. Are you coming back soon?
Yeah, I come back on Wednesday.
There you go. So our preview show, Sam will be back here in Los Angeles, but so the last one from Cincinnati. And hey, guess what? Ah! It's a win. So we got to blow the party horn. It's a win. And so as usual, Sam, tell them where they can find your stuff before we get started. I always forget to do that for you.
Yeah, no problem. You can find me on Twitter at Buy and Sell You. I write for Primetime Sports Talk, which is at Talk Primetime or primetimesportstalk.com.
There you go. So Bengals do go in. They get their first road win since 2018. The Jets and the Bengals are both on 2-game winning streaks.
Who knew?
So if you thought you're still sleeping, you're not. It's not Bizarro World. That is where it is. I don't know if there are any new planets aligned, but whatever's still going on is still going on. So
yeah, it might be colder in hell than it is here.
Yeah,
right
I think
because
so.
I think it's frozen over.
There you go. So we'll go through the good and the bad. We'll start with the bad first. I have a little bad, and obviously we have a lot of good. There was a lot of good stuff today.
It was an exciting game.
It was, first half was kind of, Bengals dominated, but didn't, we're sitting there tied, and I was like, oh, here we go. But yeah, the second half, they were just trading scores. It was a fun game to watch. So William Jackson III, he was knocked out on a concussion, but before that he gave up the huge, he got completely burned. Was that by Cooks or Cutie?
Yeah, on that little hitch.
Yeah, so
he just froze in his tracks.
And then he tries to get back in, but the play was over at that point. But he didn't have his best effort today. I noticed that Brandon Allen had a great game, and most of the stuff I have to say about him is really good. But that he does still tend to stare down his primary receiver right after the snap. So that's something that needs to stop. Once again, we dominated the first half, and we're tied. Because of, we went for it a couple times on fourth down, but we got to learn. And this was the big thing. Our 2-minute offense and defense. I mean, we literally almost got burned twice by not taking enough time when we did get the ball back after we, gave up the score right before half. We almost gave them another chance. So we've got to get better. This is not just a Zach issue. That our 2-minute offense and defense closing out first halves in the game has been horrific going back to Marvin. And it continues to be. So but that's what I've got. And Bates missing a bunch of tackles today. He had an game, but I think that's all I have on the bad.
Yeah, the tackling was definitely a little suspect, especially when late. I'd say once we got under about 10 minutes to go, the defense was tired of giving up chunk plays, and so rather than just making tackles, they did that age-old thing of trying to hold the guy up while a million of us try to pull the ball out. And what happens? Now he gets 10 more yards. That's the most infuriating thing in the world.
No, we had a few of those today where the scrum just moved, and then you see the offensive players now that it's legal to move the pile. You see the offensive players come in, and they're
on the touchdown to Fells. One of the receivers grabbed him from inside the end zone and pulled him into the end zone.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, I mean, I so much would rather see you just make the tackle. In fact, my buddy Danny texted me during the game, and he's like, "Why are you trying to rip the ball out? We're winning right now. Just make a tackle, and get him down and live to fight another down. You know what I mean? Instead of giving him an extra, 10 yards or whatever."
I felt the tackling on both sides was really bad. There was the Perrine run that should have gone for about 6 yards and went for 46 yards at a touchdown because Houston couldn't tackle. I mean, he was just bouncing off guys like a pachinko ball. So I thought the tackling on both sides was pretty weak.
It was, and the Texans zone was soft. That's not. I'm not really on a bad thing right now. I guess maybe we can just transition because, there wasn't a whole lot that I didn't like. You pretty much, mentioned the stuff that I wasn't too excited about. But their zone was so soft throughout the game, and Brandon Allen did have a great game. and I'm not going to take anything away from him because he was on it on
Right.
a lot of his throws. A couple of them were a little iffy, but for the most part, he was on it. But you got to consider, I mean, they didn't have Merciless at linebacker. Right before the game, they moved Murray, their safety, to the COVID-19 list.
Right.
So there are guys in that soft zone in the middle of the field that normally would be there
Right.
and weren't. But I'm not complaining about it.
Right. I felt the same way. I try to temper my feelings because I was like, wow, Brandon Allen looks great. I mean, even the play where Drew Sample got called for the OPI, that was a great completion.
Yeah.
I mean, and the block occurred maybe 2 yards downfield instead of 1 yard downfield. I'm not contesting the call. I'm just saying, even on a play like that, that was a great throw by Brandon Allen. But I tried to temper it with the same thing you said. I know they lost their safety right before the game started. They were already lean back there anyway.
Yeah.
The strength was the defensive line, not the secondary. So I try to not get too excited, but Brandon Allen looks like he's developing into a viable backup. I mean, he definitely was able. He slung it around today. He hit T. Higgins. He hit your favorite guy, Alex Erickson, on several big passes.
Yeah.
I mean, he slung it around today. They definitely are willing to. They trust Finley or Allen a whole lot more than they trust Finley. They'll let him sling it downfield, and he's definitely showing. I think he can be our number 2 going into next year. He's definitely we're seeing that progression of him getting better with each start, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, and they did him a favor with the play calling in this game. We came out in the first quarter, and on those first several drives, it was all screen passes and passes to the flat. That were working really, really well.
Right.
And that pretty much, set the defense up to be able to be picked apart further down the field because they got tired of constantly, Gio or Samaje, once or twice it was Sample, picking up 10, 12, 15 yards on these little dump off passes.
Right.
And so they all started kind of creeping up a little bit. And that's when, Allen started uncorking long passes. I think he had something like 6 passes of over 25 yards in this game. That's unheard of for a backup quarterback to be doing.
He threw for 371 today.
Yeah.
The Bengals had over 500 yards in offense. It was our biggest offensive outing, of the year. But he threw for and Gio ran for Gio had 16 carries, Perrine had 13 carries. We stayed committed to the run, and Gio had 7 catches.
Yeah,
so we got Gio the ball 22 times, and I think Greg Jennings said that when Gio gets 15 or more touches, we're 12-1-1. And I don't know what time frame that's in. I would probably think in the last 2 years or maybe last year and this year. But he didn't say the time frame, but he said Bengals are 12-1-1 when Gio has 15 or more touches. So
it wasn't last year and this year because we haven't won 12 games.
Right. Well, exactly. So it'd probably be his whole career. You know what?
Right.
Probably had a stat guy who pulled up his whole career.
So. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about Perrine ended the game 136 total yards from scrimmage between rushing and receiving.
Right.
Gio ended the game with 131 from scrimmage.
Right.
Total rushing and receiving. That's 267 yards all purpose from your 2 running backs.
Running backs, yeah.
And it's not even like, that was the whole game. We had 4 different receivers go over 60 yards. You had Higgins at 99, Erickson 88, Gio 66, AJ 64.
Right.
And on the game, Allen hit 8 different receivers. So he was spreading the ball around. It's not like he was just, concentrated on, just we're going to hit Higgins all day or
well, he in the beginning of the game, and this is what I was talking about, him focusing on his primary. He was determined to get. I don't know if they had identified AJ's matchup as the one they wanted to go to, but he definitely tried to force the ball in the first 3 times to AJ when he was double covered. And I was like, well, if he's double covered, that means Higgins is not double covered.
Probably
Erickson
open.
is not double covered. Erickson was in for Boyd, who was out, but. But I was, like I said, that corrected itself later on. He didn't do it as much. So
yeah, I think some of that is, when the play call comes in from the sideline, when you've got a backup quarterback, somebody that doesn't have as much raw talent as like a Joe Burrow or some of the other starters in the league. A lot of times you design that play and say, this one's going to go to AJ. If he's covered, throw it out of bounds.
Right.
And Brandon didn't do that very much, didn't throw it out of bounds very much. But Yeah, but I mean, still, I'm sure there are some where they wanted him to go through a progression. He was staring a guy down. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
I think, as long as we're talking about the passing game, I think we need to mention that this is probably the best performance by the offensive line that we've had this entire season. My buddy just informed me that as far as he can tell, going back to last year, we're 3-1 when Fred Johnson starts at left tackle, which is an odd stat. I'm not suggesting.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to read too much into that, but
I'm not suggesting he should be our left tackle going forward because,
no,
think about the teams that we've beaten, of course.
right.
But between Johnson and then the rotation of Bobby Hart and Adeniji at the tackle positions, really did a good job, especially, when Jennings even mentioned, you really haven't heard JJ Watt's name today.
No,
he didn't have any knockdowns. He didn't have any knockdowns. He didn't have any quarterback hits. He finished with 1 tackle and 2 assists. And he was frustrated visibly. He was visibly frustrated that he couldn't get back there. And the offensive line didn't allow a sack either. And it's not because Brandon Allen was escaping trouble. He had time back there to sit back there and, drink some chai and wait for somebody to open up.
Yeah. Or when they did put pressure in, he got rid of the ball quick.
Right.
Yeah. A slant, a screen, something. They threw more screen passes than I could even count. At one point, I think Greg Jennings said, "Oh, that must be like the 10th screen pass or something." And I thought probably more.
Right. even more shocking was that they worked.
Yes. Well, that was the other thing. And this is why I tempered my feelings was, you have a team, you don't want to see, at what point are you going to stop it? And we kept running screens even late in the fourth quarter and they were still working. It was like, at what point are you just going to, I say just keep going to it. When you hand the ball off and a player runs for 6 or 7 yards, it's like, just keep running until they show you they could stop you.
Yeah, we're throwing screen passes, and at one point I'm sitting there and I'm like, so this is what it feels like.
Yeah,
because other teams do it to us relentlessly
all the time.
And I was like, so this is what it feels like to do this play successfully. That's really strange.
Right. So overall, like I said, offensively, it was a good game. My only thing is we fell back, I think, to 5 or 6 today, depending on what Carolina does. Carolina's beating Washington right now. Ultimately, I think Washington probably comes back and wins that game because they have a shot with the Giants losing of wrapping up the division today.
Last I saw it was 13-0 Carolina.
Yeah. So, but we'll
just depends on whether Haskins can get his act together, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. He's showing some real. I saw a thing on the pregame where they said that he's probably gone. That his little antics, coupled with the fact that you have your coach who's been going through cancer treatment, that's like showing real lack of judgment. So
right.
So, we probably fell back to 5 or 6. So thoughts of Penny, making, being our pick. It's with the Jets winning 2, they just might take Penny at 2. And we won't be there if they don't, because like I said, we're going to be back at 5.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like we would need him to fall one spot. We would need him to fall multiple spots.
It wouldn't happen. Yeah,
he's not going to. I'll say again what I said during the preview, which is this is Penny is a special talent, but this is a really good draft to be looking for offensive linemen. So I do think we'll have some opportunities to pick up 1 or 2 still very, very high quality players that won't need a whole ton of development. So, we were talking about this earlier, it's a mixed bag of feelings when this happens. I'll say again what I said in the preview, which is I like to win. Winning is always better than losing, in my opinion. So I'll deal with the draft pick later on. We wouldn't even be talking about this if Randy Bullock hit a field goal in September. It wouldn't even be a question at this point.
Right.
So, you just got to take what it gives to you. And I'll take this team learning to win with a backup quarterback and a backup running back. And I'll be happy about it.
Yeah, well, it's also the fact that you have the Dolphins, the Houston. They were the Dolphins didn't even play today, and they were the biggest benefactor because Houston now jumped into the top 5, and they have Houston's 1 and 2 this next, in 2021. So Miami is just going to get rich, and they're obviously not going to go quarterback. So even if Penny were to fall, you've got Miami sitting there with Houston's first round pick and their second. So Miami's going to get a whole lot better fast. based on what they have already. So, yeah, it is what it is.
Well, we'll have to, after all the games pan out for this weekend, we'll have to sit down and look at what the tiebreakers are and everything to see going into our game against Baltimore, what the scenarios are of what pick we could end up with. And maybe we could talk about that during the preview on Thursday.
Absolutely. We need to see the big tiebreaker we got to look at is the Eagles, because if they were to lose today and we would both be 4-10-1. And if we're tied with them, I don't know what the tiebreaker would be, with another conference opponent.
Yeah, because it's not conference record, because we're in different conferences.
Right. So
I don't know if then you're going to opponents, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it gets down to some really
opponents.
weird tiebreakers. So hopefully, listen, that's all a non-issue if the Eagles win today. So which they were winning.
They were up 14-3 when we started.
So we'll have to see what happens. But that was the big downer. Like I said, it's kind of mixed emotions, because we also aren't in that spot where anybody's going to want to trade up, because you're going to have the guys in 3 and 4. If you're looking for Zach Wilson, if you want Fields, you're going to be trading with the guys ahead of us now. So yeah, it is what it is. So,
well, it's not like there won't be a good player there at 5 or 6 or wherever we end up. So, hopefully we'll just make the right decision on who we take.
As long as we don't pick a John Ross, we'll be okay.
Right.
So, because the last time we were sitting in that kind of zone, that was our pick. So let's hopefully whatever brain made that decision is not either learn from their mistake or isn't even in the decision-making process. That's what we can hope for. So, well, anything else you got to say in terms of closing? I mean, that was my big takeaway, was that Brandon Allen looked like a viable number 2. He's really developed.
Yeah. I mean, all I can say is that's, we scored the most points and had the most yards that we've had this entire season. And it made for a really entertaining game to watch. And, Baltimore's going to need this game next Sunday, and we'll talk about that on Thursday. But I just want to see us come out with some fight against them, considering that their playoff hopes might hinge on it at that point. I wouldn't expect to win that game, but I would just want to see us come out again with the same fire that we've come out with in these last 2 games.
Yeah. Well, with Pittsburgh winning, they clinched the division. The Browns and the Ravens both have beaten Indianapolis. So now Indianapolis, having lost today, is now on the outside looking in. So once again, we could, if the Browns beat the Steelers, who aren't playing for anything next week, unless they want the Browns out, in which case then maybe that. But with the Steelers aren't playing for anything next week. If the Browns and Ravens win, we have 3 teams in the North that'll make the playoffs.
Right, and the Colts are playing the Jags. So I will say this: wouldn't it be really fun to be the Ravens spoiler again after we just did it to them for Buffalo a couple years ago?
Yes.
It would be really fun to see the Colts and the Browns both win and have us knock out the Ravens again. Boy, they would hate that.
There's a picture right there of Tyler Boyd, and on that picture of Tyler Boyd that he signed, it says 4th and 12, baby. Right. So that's it. It says 4th and 12.
I would love nothing more to do that again. Draft pick be damned.
So yeah, that's you know what? That would only cost us another place, and to add misery to do that 2 times in the last 4 years. Yep. That might be worth it. So
well, as long as we come out with a little fire, I think any given Sunday, right?
Any given hey, listen, we had
or any given Monday.
We hadn't run a road game since 2018. We hadn't beaten the Steelers at home since I think 2013. Was the last time in Cincinnati we won. And the Jets were looking like they were going to join the win list, and now both of us are on 2-game win streak. So things change in a hurry.
It's a wild league.
So, all right, well, we will be back. Please, if you don't subscribe, do subscribe. That's all we ask for. You can find Sam's stuff on Primetime Sports Talk, and we will be back on Thursday with the preview of the Ravens game coming up this week. I hope everybody had a great Christmas weekend, and I'm going to say, hoo-day, everybody.
Hoo-day.
Take care.